you worry about on the West Coast with Golden State, their injuries. I want to ask you about that because they haven't really played great, but there's no Steph, and they're kind of playing out the string. So are you concerned or not concerned right now? We're looking at the Warriors heading in versus the other years that they've walked into the playoffs.
I am concerned for numerous reasons. One, because of the health of Steph Curry, but two, defensively, they're not as good as they were years prior. And it starts, KD's been exceptionally well on the defensive end of the floor in spurts of the season, but you need to see more. And, I feel like he's going to bounce back from that performance offensively that he had last night. The 2 turnovers down the stretch to close the game, possibly against the Pelicans. But collectively, they have to be on the string, and they need guys available. And if someone would have told you, a year from now that you had to depend on Swaggy P and JaVale McGee to be consistent during this marathon of the playoffs for the Golden State Warriors to be back in that position,
you'd be the Wizards of 5 years ago.
Well, hey, if somebody would have told you that the Houston Rockets would have won the division by 7 games,
well, that's true.
Nobody saw that coming. I agree with you, Karan. Look, Steve Kerr's concerned. Therefore, everybody else should be concerned because he watches his team. He's with them every day. He's around them. He knows their mentality. And he sees the slippage defensively. And for Steve Kerr, look, how many times this year has he called out his team publicly? Some coaches just don't like to do. But when you go down that road, Karan, you know this, when you start singling your team out publicly, that means you're trying to send a message to these guys that, one, you're not happy, and two, things are not all well in Golden State land. Look, do we expect this team to be able to turn it on? Yeah, we do, but again, sometimes you get in that comfort zone to where you're looking at the schedule and you're like, you know what, we're the Warriors, we've done the last 3 seasons, we just have to show up and win. And then all of a sudden there's no Steph Curry, you're not playing as well, you're not making as many threes, and you're not defending. That's the biggest thing. Golden State, you used to hang their hat on the defensive end because they was 1 or 2 or 3 defensively. When you watch them the last 2 weeks of the season, they have struggled. They haven't stopped anyone, and that's the concern that Steve Kerr has right now.
Yeah, I want to ask you about this because take us through reality. You mentioned kind of turning on the switch, right? That's what everybody says about Cleveland all these years. And I remember last year down the stretch, they had bad losses here to Atlanta. They blew leads, and then they go into the playoffs. They end up in the finals anyway. Then you got the other people who say, well, Philadelphia, yeah, they're winning all these games, but they're peaking too soon. So is it you peak too early, you never peak? I mean, does any of this stuff matter? You were on playoff teams that did all sorts of different things. How much do we overrate in the media and with fans how you are playing getting into a postseason before it starts?
Man, listen, they throw numbers out there all the time, analytics, so forth. But you want to be playing your best basketball going into the postseason. That gives you momentum. And it don't necessarily have to result to wins. But when you're clicking on all cylinders. If you're making that extra pass to the corner, guys cutting off the feel of you, and just playing with a nice flow to it offensively. You know exactly what's going on if you're filling gaps, if the rotations is sharp, guys are on the same page on the defensive end, and you're able to shrink the floor just in a matter of seconds, then the game is going to be coming relatively easy for you in the postseason. But if you don't see that, it's going to be tough to turn it on. It's only a handful of teams that can actually do it, and that's the true contenders. And I would say that Cleveland will probably be one of those teams just because of LeBron and his leadership. And I would have to say Golden State could be that team if they get a step back healthy.